Good night, everybody, and welcome once again to another Lime Vibe Live podcast. I'm your host, Yori Araman Kemp, here from the beautiful islands of the Bahamas, New Providence, Bahamas, to be exact. I'm in the beautiful island of Nassau, New Providence. Thank you for joining me for another Lime Vibe Live podcast. If you have not done so, please like, share, and subscribe to our Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch page. That's Lime Vibe 77. That's Lime Vibe and the number 77 at YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. Okay, so like, share, and subscribe, and join our network, huh? We're still in the growing phase, and we appreciate you tuning in tonight for another Live Vibe Live podcast. I don't know how you guys had today. How was your day today, guys? I hope all is well. You had no unforeseen issues or accidents. And it's always a pleasure to be above ground, I always say. It's always a pleasure and a blessing, actually, to be in the land of the living. Enjoy God's good green earth and his beautiful air. Those of you who can. So I'm going to start the show off tonight by talking about something that happened on our sister network. That's Caribbean Magazine Plus. That's Carib Mag Plus. If you go and you search Caribbean Magazine Plus, you'll find all of our content there. That's our online magazine. It's owned by Arawak Media. Okay. And we hosted 2 weeks ago the Tropic Spin Music and Song Competition. This is our third installment of the Tropic Spin Music and Song Competition. And we have a winner, Sultana, with their song Flying. So if you go to the Caribbean Magazine Plus YouTube page or the Caribbean Magazine Plus Facebook page, you'll see that we had the Tropic Spin Music and Song Competition. You can watch it in its entirety. It's right there on our social media platforms in Caribbean Magazine Plus. And you'll hear the song that entered into the Tropic Spin Music and Song Competition. It's our third installment, and we're proud that we're continually keeping this on. We had to cut down the prize money to a great extent because we just couldn't find ourselves paying all that money all the time. I think we said this before numerous times already. But in any event, Sultana, the group Sultana, won with their song Flying. And we spoke to the group's leader, Edwin Leon. He's a Colombian national. And actually, this is the first time a non-Caribbean and a male won the Tropic Spin Music and Song Competition. It's the first time a non-Caribbean national and a male won the Tropic Spin Music and Song Competition. So Edwin Leon spoke to us he's in Spain right now, actually. So he entered a song from Spain. And he's a Colombian national living in Spain because he said he wants more opportunities in Spain. So he spoke to us and he said he's shocked actually to win the Tropic Spin Music and Song Competition. And for the mere fact, he's shocked because he hasn't been practicing, so he said, for the past couple of months. Okay, so he entered in his song and he entered it and he won. The song is called Flying. It's right there on the Caribbean Magazine Plus Facebook page and YouTube page. And so we love the song and the voters love the song and the audience love the song. So we had to decide, we're going to let the song win. Now I know we changed the format too, huh? We decided not to just go with the most liked song because we found that people were scamming the system. They were getting all that, which we don't mind. We don't mind people getting their family and friends to vote. But not even 2 or 3 times either. You could vote as much time as you want, actually. We'll be changing that. We changed that this year. And we've now put in a system where we only allow 1 vote per person per IP address. And also, we found that crap songs were getting in. Like the second year, that song was awful. I have to admit, I don't like to bash people in bash town because I am by no stretch of the imagination some kind of musical air. But that song was terrible, and they only won because their family and friends they got and they voted multiple times, and so we're trying to avoid people who are gaming the system. So we're trying to go for the person who has the best talent. So we're working and tweaking our system a bit, and so we found that Edwin Leon from Sultana won hands down by our new system. Yeah, the song called Flying. It's not a Caribbean rhythm. It is not a Central American rhythm. It's not a Latin American beat either. It's more like a pop rock song. And we invite all genres of music, whether it's classical music, whether it's band music, whether it's gospel music, whether it's R&B, whether it's soca, calypso, samba, salsa. We invite any kind of music genre. Once you have talent, and people can appreciate your music, we leave it to the people. That's why we leave it to the people who are listening ears out there. We leave it to you to choose who the best one is. And so Edwin Leon, the group leader from Sultana, said he hasn't been practicing for months and he's living in Spain right now, but he's pleased to win the 3rd annual Tropic Spin Music and Song Competition. We wish him all the best. Okay? Like I said, he's a Colombian national living in Spain, And you can go to our Facebook and YouTube page, Carib Mag Plus, and you can listen to the song. And it's a great song, actually. I loved it as well, too. Okay? So, another news, more boring news, I would say, but not really boring. It's really important news, huh? The Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean, ECLAC, in a recent report said that foreign direct investment is lower in 2023 by almost 10% compared to 2022. That was their recent report from their Foreign Direct Investment in Latin America and the Caribbean report for 2024. Okay? It said in 2023, a US $184 billion in FDI entered the LAC, the Latin American Caribbean region, a figure that was 9.9% lower than in 2022, but still above the average in the past decade. Okay? So there's less inflow, but still above the average. That means we're growing, but things are slacking off a bit. With this decline, FDI inflows as a share of the region's GDP also fell, representing 2.8% in 2023. Despite this, inflows represented 40% of the world total in 2023, a higher share than the average for the 2010s. So we're battling a global phenomenon, it sounds like. Our inflows represented 14% of the world total in 2023, a higher share than what was in the 2010s. Okay, that means we're getting a higher share, but still getting less investment. So that's a global issue I think we're dealing with. That's a global investment issue. And I think because China really is starting to recede now, they're going through a depression, a severe economic recession by all indications. And so that money, they're starting to send the money back home to themselves. They're spending that money inside China. Okay? And with that as well, there's some continuing wars going on. We can't forget the wars in Gaza, in Israel, and Palestine. We can't forget the war in Ukraine and Russia. And then there's also some other little conflagrations around the region in Africa and some other ones in Yemen. And so they're really minor skirmishes, but the big ones is the Israeli and Palestinian war, because it invited so many European and Western forces that really focus their attention on that particular region, and the Russia-Ukraine war for obvious reasons, right? It's right in the European doorstep. So I think people have been consumed with that. So that's why foreign direct investment has really been receding around the world. Hopefully, with the change in U.S. presidential leadership, which was bound to happen, where it's going to be Kamala Harris, the vice president is going to be Donald Trump, the former president, is going to be change in the White House. So, because President Joe Biden said he's not running for re-election. So, hopefully that will settle the world down. We'll have some growth after 2024. But most likely 2025 will be a better year, because I think after the U.S. presidential election, a lot of these things are going to settle down. I think people really took advantage of President Joe Biden, and because he was not able to be he wasn't able to be, he wasn't able to actually be more in control of the U.S. presidency. I think people took advantage of that, and so they know he could not respond. And so we had these chaos all over the world. Okay? But the Olympics, by the way, has gone off without a hitch. I wouldn't say without a hitch, because they had some controversies. They had the transgender thing, that resembled the Last Supper of Christ, and we won't play that. We won't play that at all. But what we are going to do, we are going to praise the Caribbean Olympians who won gold. We want to promote and praise St. Lucia and Julian Alfred, becoming the first person of St. Lucia to win an Olympic medal by winning the gold medal in a shocking upset of the women's 100-meter race in the 2023 world champion and the upset of the 2023 world champion Kerry Richardson at this Olympics. So praise to Julian Alfred being the first Olympian to win a gold medal, to win a medal for St. Lucia. Praise her. And also we want to praise Dominican Thea Lafon, who also won the country's first Olympic medal, a gold in the women's triple jump. I'll be proud of these people. So we were only talking about Jamaica, Trinidad, and the Bahamas when it comes down to the Olympians in the Caribbean. But now we have to add St. Lucia, we have to add Dominica, So this is big news. And for two tiny countries in the Caribbean, one of the two smaller ones, I think Dominica is a very small country. They have less than 150,000 people in Dominica. To produce an Olympian is a great achievement. And I say kudos to Dominica and kudos to St. Lucia. Both countries should be proud, and they should be happy that they produce such great citizens. Okay? And the Olympics are going on. We're going to talk about the other Olympic controversy as well. And not just the transgender Last Supper that they played at the opening ceremony of the Olympics, but there was a controversy in the boxing female boxing in Olympics. We're going to talk about it later on as well too. Okay, so this Paris Olympics, it's going on. It's going on. I think they finished this weekend as well, and so we just want to show thanks that it was safe, largely safe, and no athletes were really hurt or injured. No one was really hurt or injured. There was any massive protests in the streets in France, and it was kept. The security was tightened, but there was some other stuff going on in the background, like we'll talk about later. Also, as well, back to a regional story. Just 2 weeks after Venezuela's disputed election, the incumbent and presumptive winner, Nicolas Maduro, has started a coordinated crackdown on opposition dissent in Venezuela. He's been jailing journalists, jailing dissenters, people who are in opposition members. He's been jailing other activists as well in Venezuela, all because the election was disputed and he wants that opposition to tamp down. And people are still in the streets in Venezuela. And Maduro is trying to get order back inside Venezuela. We can't say we didn't expect this. We expected Maduro to take this route because we believe that regardless of what had happened, he could have lost 100% of the vote. He was not going to give up power that easily. And I'm surprised he actually went through an election. I'm surprised that he did. Okay? Because people like him need to be dragged out of office, man. And that's just the truth about it. Because they've taken upon themselves to think of themselves higher than life in itself. And he thinks only him one can actually run Venezuela. Forget the criminality. Forget all the criminal behavior of his regime. Forget all of that. But he really believes he's the only person that could run Venezuela. And he puts himself in that position. And as much as Venezuelans protest and as much as them leave Venezuela under his brutal regime, he doesn't get the idea that he's not the hot stuff on the streets. And so people like him, they are disillusioned. They are disillusioned with life and what's reality. So he has to be dragged out of office. There's no other way you can get rid of someone like him. And I'm not saying assassinate him. I would never advocate assassinating him. But you're not going to win a free and fair election in Venezuela with Nicolas Maduro at the helm. It's just not going to happen. That's just the reality of it. And we don't want to talk about assassinations and things of that nature. That's not what we advocate. We advocate winning soundly on the ground, and making sure there's a true and genuine opposition force that is really targeted and prepared to break a few rules as well too, to make sure that there's a clear and resounding message that Nicolas Maduro is not wanted as the leader of Venezuela. And once that happens, there's nothing you can do. But otherwise than that, it's going to end up this way anyway, because we've seen it happen all over before. Sooner or later, one of his top generals, his top military commanders, they're going to have an issue with him, and they're going to seize power for themselves. Okay, that's what's going to happen more or less. And I call dibs. That's most likely what's going to happen in the next 10 years or so, the next 4 or 5 years, maybe even sooner than that, maybe the next 2 or 3 years. You're going to have a military commander that's going to be very, very sympathetic to the people of Venezuela and the opposition in Venezuela. And they're going to stage a coup, a bloodless coup, we hope. That's what's going to happen, because there's only so much the Venezuelans can take. The oil sector is decimated. It's finished. People are leaving the country. Families are being torn apart. Violence is on the streets. There's no rule and there's no order. Everything is just up in the air in Venezuela. So we have to really take stock of what we want to do with Nicolas Maduro moving forward. And, all these clowns in the Caribbean, praising Nicolas Maduro, I think they should rethink that, man. They should rethink that seriously. They should stay out of it if they don't know the politics that's going on in Venezuela. There's a reason why people want him gone. There's a reason why Venezuelans are leaving by the millions. Don't get into that. Don't go around praising Nicolas Maduro. It's a foolish game. It's a foolish gambit. Now, we go on to our last story. And this is a kind of an entertainment story, but not really. This Olympic boxing scandal between the Taiwanese boxer. Let me get their names. Sorry, search 1 second. Let me search their names. I want to talk about it, but I didn't remember the name. Amin Khalif, an Algerian female boxer at the U.S. At the Olympics this year, and that's Amin Khalif. She's apparently a female, but there's a controversy that she may be a man. Taiwan boxer. And the other one was a Taiwanese boxer called Lin Yuting. Both of these boxers apparently they were banned by the International Boxing Association last year for having male traits, male characteristics, even though the IBA did not release the test studies of why they proved why these two boxers were supposed to have been disqualified. However, the Olympic Committee allowed them to compete at this year's Olympics, and they raised controversy because they both look like males. And I'm going to play you a video right now from the ABC report that details a lot of what's been going on. So let's go to that video.
The 2024 Olympic Games have garnered tens of millions of viewers with jaw-dropping performances and compelling storylines. But in recent days, controversy surrounding the gender of one boxer has also consumed headlines. William Brangham has that story.
Algerian boxer Iman Khalif was triumphant yesterday. She defeated her opponent from Thailand and now will fight for gold on Friday night. On the streets of Paris,
Just a quick note, she won her gold medal match, so she's the gold medalist. She's the reigning gold medalist this year.
Algerian fans rejoiced.
It was an intense fight. She gave everything. Iman was able to represent her country. She was able to show the world what strong Algerian women are. She came out victorious, and we are proud of that.
But Khalif's rise has also put her at the center of an international firestorm. It began last week when she defeated an Italian boxer here in blue who quit their match after just 46 seconds, saying she was in too much pain from Khalif's punches.
A man from beating a woman to death.
Immediately, social media and cable news was flooded with false accusations that Khalif was male or transgender. Former President Donald Trump and Harry Potter author J.K. Rowling, both of whom have spoken out against transgender people, lashed out at Khalif's participation.
The far left wants to allow biological males to beat the living crap out of women in boxing.
Khalif is not male or transgender, but these recent accusations stemmed in part from her disqualification at last year's World Championships. The International Boxing Association, or IBA, a governing body for the sport, barred Khalif and a Taiwanese boxer after the IBA claimed they failed unspecified gender eligibility tests. The International Olympic Committee, which called the IBA's decision, quote, arbitrary, and banned the association over corruption concerns last year, decried the vitriol that's been aimed at Khalif.
The Algerian boxer was born female, was registered female, lived her life as a female, boxed as a female, has a female passport. This is not a transgender case.
Amid the attacks, Khalif's father came to his daughter's defense.
This is our official family document. May 2nd, 1999, Iman Khalif, a female. It is written here, you can read it. This document doesn't lie. The people who are lying and leading a fierce campaign against her are the enemies of God. The attacks against her are immoral. It is not fair. Iman is a little girl that has loved sport since she was 6 years old.
Algerian fans have been solidly behind Khalif at the Games, and this week she spoke about the toll the criticism has taken.
I send a message to all the people of the world to uphold the Olympic principles, to refrain from bullying all athletes because this thing has effects, massive effects. It can destroy people, it can kill people's thoughts, spirit, and mind.
So that was Iman Khalif a few days ago, describing what these accusations can do to people. For a deeper look at what we do and do not know, and what this says more broadly about the future of women's sports, we are joined by Katie Barnes, who's been closely following this for ESPN. Katie is also the author of Fair Play: How Sports Shape the Gender Debates. Katie Barnes, thank you so much for being here. There are so many different threads in this story. Who governs boxing? Who gets to determine who competes where? All these misconceptions about Iman Khalif herself. But let's start with her to begin with. She's born a female, she's lived her life as a female, she's competed as a female, and yet there's this International Boxing Association test that allegedly disqualifies her. What do we know about that test and what it tells us?
The nature of the test itself is unclear. The association has said that it was not a testosterone test, In a press conference, they later clarified that it was a blood test. But what they were testing for and exactly what eligibility standards Khalif did not meet, they have not been specific about. And part of that is due to the fact that this information is private medical information, so they are limited in terms of what they can say publicly without the consent of the fighters.
So at its core, it seems that there is this discrepancy between what the IBA and the Olympics say about whether or not someone has some unfair characteristics that allow them to compete or not, right? Isn't that the core of this?
Yes, is the tension around the question of who should be eligible to compete in the women's category in sports, in this case in boxing. And there is a disagreement, it would seem, between the IBA and the IOC. And again, we don't know the specifics of the disagreement, but the IBA has vigorously defended its decision to disqualify Khalif and Lin Yuting. And the IOC has vigorously defended its decision to include them both in the women's boxing competition in Paris.
How often are these tests used? Have they been used for a long time? What can you tell us about the history of this kind of testing?
I would say that sex verification testing in terms of determining whether or not an athlete who wants to participate in an elite women's category is eligible to do so, that has been around for a very long time. Almost since women have been playing sports at the Olympic level, frankly. And so those tests have taken different forms, from visual inspections to cheek swabs that are looking for DNA tests or chromosomes to hormone tests over time. And so they've taken different forms, and in recent years, I would say it's been cyclical in terms of how these tests are performed and under what circumstances. And so it's an ongoing discussion about how best to regulate the women's category. And it is something that is unique to the women's category. The men's category is not under the same type of scrutiny, largely because of the nature of how women began to get access to sports to begin with. It's derived from this idea that this is a protected category, and so therefore the boundary that is set must be policed from a regulation standpoint. And so how that has happened has changed over time, but it's pretty much always been there.
So what do you make of the whole political firestorm that blew up over Iman's successes?
I really think of it as a consequence of imprecise language. When people use terms like biological male, quote unquote, and quote unquote man to describe people who are competing in a women's sporting event, especially a combat sports event like boxing, that tends to bring out a lot of emotion from folks. And that is also happening in the wake of just a tremendous amount of emotional and legislative energy being put toward addressing some of these issues in the United States in terms of legislation passing around transgender athletes. And so I really think that bred a lot of confusion and brought out a lot of emotions. And sometimes that was used inadvertently, incorrectly, and sometimes folks, I think, weaponize that in this particular case.
I mean, apart from these larger debates over who governs these rules and who sets these standards, as we heard from Iman Khalif herself, the vitriol that was directed at her towards an individual has got to be so dispiriting when you're trying to compete at this level.
Yeah, I can't speak for her, of course, but you're judging by what she has said publicly, and also, how she just released so much emotion after winning her quarterfinal bout. It's very clear that this has weighed heavily on her. And other athletes who have been through similar difficulties when they run up against policy that disqualifies them and that becomes public. I think it's important to acknowledge as members of the public that these are real people who are wrestling with these things and perhaps are learning new information about themselves. And now that's being parsed publicly and in highly emotional and charged ways. And athletes are human too. And I think we would do well to remember that.
All right, Katie Barnes of ESPN, thank you so much for helping us wade through all of this.
Thank you for having me.
Now, that was a PBS report. Now, I don't want to say that I don't believe Iman Khalif is not a woman, okay? I don't want to say that at all, because if the IOC, an international organization, believes and they have reason to believe that she was born a female, has female parts, and all of that sort of thing. That's fine. However, the IBA has a point when they disbanded her as well, when they rejected her as well. So now we're getting the political side of this as well too, okay? Because there may be some issue between the IOC and the IBA to begin with. So I would say, if there's no issue, why can't we just ask Imam Khalif and Li Yuting to get the IBA to release their medical records? And if they don't agree to release those medical records, then perhaps they should be stripped from their gold medals, or their medals, or their competition, their brackets. That could be easily solved. Because if they have nothing to hide, then there should be no issue. And if the IBA has been around for years, forget all the talk about the corruption and all that kind of stuff the IOC tried to lobby against them, okay? The IBA has been involved in boxing for years now, okay? They've been managing this for years. And so they understand what testing should be and what should be in a combat sportsman's blood. Things like testosterone and all those other chemicals, they are red flags when it comes down to testing for additional PEDs, performance enhancing drugs, and things of that nature. So we believe in the testing of both organizations, and both had a reason to do what they had to do. However, we find it odd that the IBA has not been able to release their medical records to the IOC, and the boxers themselves have not said that the IBA should release why they were actually suspended from boxing with the IBA. Okay? That's a real issue right there. We can't lose sight of that. That's the key right there. So that's how you know when someone's, giving you bullshit, telling you a bunch of foolishness. And so we have to be very, very mindful of that, these things when we deal with these things with these people. Okay, because you would look at the reporter from the ESPN there. You could see, you would see which side of the fence she leans on. And she, of course she's going to hype up, the fact that a transgender or someone who has some gender dysphoria would be, doing something tremendous, okay? Of course, they would try to investigate that in that way. And so we have to be careful of these images that are coming across to us as human beings, okay? No one should have an unfair advantage. No one. And you can't have men beating up on women. You just can't have it. Now, there may be a case where Imam Khalif and Li Yuting, they may have some sort of genetic defect, where they have all the makings of being a man, but they're not really an hermaphrodite, they're not really a man, and so they're actually female. That could be the case. And we have to give them the benefit of the doubt too. That could be very well the case. Okay? But if it's doping, or taking some kind of enhancement drugs that makes them stronger than the average woman, then that's a problem in itself, and that needs to be taken into consideration. Okay? So let's rock back to where we started from tonight. We talked about, the Tropic Spin Music and Song Competition winner, Edwin Leon. He's the leader of the group Sultana, and they entered with their song Flying, and they won this year's Tropic Spin Music and Song Competition, hosted by Caribbean Magazine Plus and Arawak Media, our parent company. We also talked about the ECLAC, the Economic Commission for Latin American Caribbean, saying that foreign direct investment fell by nearly 10% in 2023 compared to 2022. Okay. However, but the Latin American Caribbean region has increased their share of FDI from around the world. Okay. So that shows that there's a problem going on around the world with regard to FDI, people spending money out of their country. I think it has to do with China having going through a mini recession and these wars in the Ukraine and Palestine and Israel. Okay, that's what I think is going on. So that's why I think people are holding back their money. They're not sure exactly how things going to land, and so that's taken into consideration as well. We also have to praise the real Olympian females. Julian Alfred, who became the first Olympic medalist for her country of St. Lucia. Hats off to her. I tip my hat to her. And also Thea Lafon from Dominica, who also won the gold medal in the women's triple jump. Okay, she's a Dominican as well. She's also the first Olympic medalist from the country of Dominica. Both two very tiny countries in the Caribbean. So we tip our hat to both those females and we congratulate them. We wish them all the best. We are so proud of you, Thea and Julian. Okay? And we also talk about the ongoing political problem inside Venezuela as well. Nicolas Maduro is holding on to power, and even though the opposition has said that they've shown conclusively that they have won the country's last presidential election, Nicolas Maduro is still holding on, and he's saying he won. And so he has the ballots to prove it, and so he's actually in power, so there's nothing much really can do about that. So I said we have to drag him out of power, man. People like him, they don't leave willingly. And having an election, a fair election, is not going to work. He's not going to have a fair election with you. You have to drag him out of office. And I'm not saying you have to go to a coup, but there has to be conclusive strength on the ground from any opposition force going up against Nicolas Maduro that he is going to lose his election. And there has to be a groundswell of support that shows conclusively that he lost his election. And so you can't go there playing and saying that you're going to be a good candidate. You have to control the ballot boxes. You have to control the election machinery. You have to control the courts. You have to control every aspect of Venezuela before you actually go up against Nicolas Maduro. That's not going to work. You're always going to run into a block of his people that are in power. And people like him, we've seen it happen before. There's going to be a bloodless coup, and most likely one of his generals is going to rise up against him and take the side of the Venezuelan people, and that's what's probably going to happen. And we see it happen, a bloodless coup in Venezuela. The last thing we talked about is Olympic boxing controversy. We've given our thoughts. And so we say that, hey, if there's no problem with those two boxers, one from Algeria and one from Taiwan, Imam Khalif from Algeria and Liu Ting from Taiwan, if there's no issue with the IBA releasing their medical history and how they actually tested why they were banned from the sport of boxing by the IBA, then that they should do it. Okay, if there's nothing to hide, then they should just become out full forward. Because we believe everything that's hidden is of the devil. Everything that's being kept secret is of the devil. Okay, and there's a reason why the IBA banned them, then that should be known. And they should be the first persons out there saying that, hey, this was my medical test, and this is what we believe. And the IOC should jump to conclusions as well. They've been lobbying, insults at the IBA over this issue. And so they've actually banned the IBA from participating in this year's boxing event at the Paris Olympics. And they're actually considering whether or not they're going to allow boxing to happen at the 2028 Olympics in Los Angeles. So this is becoming an issue. This is becoming a big issue. So, yeah, that's our show for tonight, ladies and gentlemen. I thank you once again for joining me for another Line Vibe Live podcast. If you have not done so, please like, share, and subscribe to our Facebook and YouTube page. That's Line Vibe 77. That's Line Vibe 77 on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch, actually. So we thank you for joining us again for another show. We'll see you again next week with another lively show, hopefully in good speed and in good health. Thank you so much.
Live Vibe.